guys, Brandon Loomis back with another Freshwater Bandits video. Today I want to kind of I want to take you through basic steps and tips and tricks of a bait casting reel. I know there's a lot of you guys out there that will YouTube how to use a bait caster, how not to bird's nest, and today I want to kind of take you through the ins and outs and the odds and ends of a bait caster. It was about a year ago, about this time, that I got my first bait caster and I started to use it. I taught myself how to use it. Of course I used YouTube videos, and I'm sorry if you guys can barely hear me. It's windy and there's traffic everywhere, but I got my first bait caster about a year ago, and I just kept going and going and going, and eventually I got the hang of it and I learned some stuff and tricks that'll hopefully help you. So if you guys hang in there, we're going to show you exactly the ins and outs of what I've learned of the bait casting reel. The first thing I would have to mention is you watch these YouTube videos, especially the ones of how not to bird's nest. I'm going to get right into the bird's nest and the breaks and how the bait casting reel works straight off the bat, and then later on I'll explain kind of how the reel works. So I guess the first thing I want to mention is these right here. Almost every bait caster has them. They're magnetic brakes, and when you get them, if you see, this is the Abu Garcia Black Max. If you can see on the side, you have this dial that says max, and then you have a dot which would indicate the minimum amount of brakes. I have mine, which this one and my other one doesn't have it, but the Shakespeare has these numbers on the side right here. So you have 10 all the way to 0. I keep mine, if you can see it right there, I keep mine at an 8. Usually it's a 7.5, 8. Only, and I've started off with that at that setting, only because I found it easier to adjust the dial brake over the magnetic brake. You're going to see a slight change if you were to roll back those magnetic brakes to 0. It's going to be a dramatic change, as if you were to crank it up to 10. You're going to notice the difference, not as much as if you play with this next brake that we're going to talk about here, the dial brake. But that magnetic brake is pretty much, it's pretty much your safe fail safe. Yeah, words. Anyways, that's pretty much what you fall back on. There are two other brakes on this bait caster. Not on it. There are 2 types of brakes on this bait caster, 3 total that I want to talk about today, and that's your magnetic brakes. Usually I find that if you set it to about 6 or about 7.5, maybe 8.5, and then dial it back as you get better, I would say don't go any lower than a 5, only because that dial brake and your thumb brake are going to help you out with the rest of it. So that's your magnetic brake. The next thing we're going to talk about is right here. This brake right here, I call it the dial brake. There is a technical name for it, but every bait caster will have these. So basically what this does is, if you see my bait, here. Oh, how am I going to shoot this? There we go. So you have my, where is it at? You have my spinner bait there, and then you have the dial brake here. So mine's a little quicker, so if I release that brake or release that button, that bait drops. So if you were to dial it to dial it back, I guess, that bait would drop a lot faster. As if you were to crank it all the way forward, that bait would either not move unless you shook it, or it wouldn't drop at all. So I kind of tend to, I like to have it right about there. That slow, steady drop of your bait is what you want, especially if you're starting out. I suggest a slower, you're not going to get the distance that you want, but I suggest a slower drop of your bait. And if you're using a heavier bait like a spinner bait or a lipless or a jig head, more so the 3/4 ounce and the 1/2 ounce jig head, these are really big or really heavy lures. You're going to be able to cast a little bit farther. The thing is, you don't want to start bombing your baits out there as you're learning. You want to get the feel of it first. So if you were to dial that dial brake back. Keep your brakes to an 8. Start off with an 8. That's a safe bet. You don't have to go all the way to a 10. And then you would have that dial brake right here on the side to where your bait slowly dropped. Then you'd be in business. It wouldn't go as far as when you get progressed or as far as your spin casters, but you're gonna get the hang of it. And as time goes on, you're gonna be able to dial those brakes a little bit more and let your bait drop a little bit faster. Right now I have a little bit quicker than a steady is what I'm calling it, only because I want to get out to a certain point by trees and a wind-blown point. So what I'm doing is I'm dialing those brakes back, and of course, like I said, I only started doing this a year ago. Yeah, about a year ago. So I'm still learning. Of course, I still get bird's nest on occasion, but they're not nearly as bad once I started learning these tips and tricks. That is, I know I kind of strayed off a little bit, but that is the basis of your dial brake and your magnetic brake. The next brake everybody says is your thumb, and I never understood this because it was so hard to comprehend your thumb. Me, I cast with my right hand. I'm right-handed. I cast with my right hand. My left hand I use to click the button over. But if you see here, you have my reel. I keep my thumb in the top. I know it's dirty, we've been fishing, but anyways, I keep the tip of my thumb in the top left corner, just like this, keeping my, how am I gonna shoot this? Keeping my skin of my thumb just barely touching my line, just like that. And when you cast your bait, if you're actually putting a lot of oomph into it, you're casting your bait, that's gonna keep your thumb being there, just lightly touched it. You don't have to put pressure on it yet. Lightly touching that line is gonna keep your bait, it's gonna keep your line from unspooling itself, because the reason for a bait caster or a bird's nest is your bait is flying a lot faster than your spool can keep up. And what happens is when your bait hits the water, this spool keeps spinning. When it keeps spinning, that's when your line starts to come out and give you that bird's nest. So if you could prevent right off the bat, as soon as you start the cast, if you could prevent that from coming unspooled and a little bit more pressure than just laying it on there, you're already preventing a bird's nest. And the biggest, and I think the most important one that I've found so far, is if you're using a big bait with your dials or your brakes dialed back, right before it hits the water, you need to time it perfectly, but right before it hits the water, you want to stop that bait. If you stop that bait with your thumb in midair, it's gonna snap your line, it's gonna come back on you, your bait's gonna fly halfway through the air and then come back. That's what's gonna happen. If you let it go, if you don't put any pressure at all, which, mind you, if you have all your brakes dialed up and you barely cast it, chances are your spool's not gonna keep spinning. But if you stop it in midair, it's gonna come back. If you don't stop it at all with your brakes dialed back, that's going to cause your bird's nest. It's going to be really bad. So you use your thumb to kind of guide the line, keep it on the spool, and at the same time you're using that to stop the bait in its tracks as soon as it hits the water. Those things combined, all three brakes, I think that is and trust me, this is not going to stop a bird's nest. There's nothing in this world that's going to stop a bird's nest. Everybody will forever have, with bait casting reels, an occasional bird's nest, regardless if you've been fishing for 60 some years with a bait caster or if this is your first week with the bait caster. You're gonna get a bird's nest eventually. Once, twice, I don't care, you're gonna get it. It happens. That's why a lot of people are deterred from them. My thing is, get a good reel and try it. Don't be deterred. Don't think, oh, my bird's nest, I'm not catching on, I'm not gonna get this. Don't do that. Never do that. What I did was, this is your Black Max, your Abu Garcia Black Max, which is a quality name brand reel. This is your Shakespeare Alpha. A little bit less of a name brand, but it's quality, it's Shakespeare. And then over here you have my very first bait caster. This is a left-hand retrieve. What is the brand? I don't know. I got it off of wish.com because I wanted something cheap. I didn't know if I was going to be able to get the hang of it, if I was going to like it, which was good because I got to practice on it and luckily enough, that was exactly a year, or not exactly, that was a year ago about the time, and it's held in there, it's hung in there. But I learned how to use a bait caster off that reel. My advice to you is, if you're gonna get a bait caster, if you're gonna try it, go out and get a name brand or a good quality bait caster. Get a Abu Garcia, get a Shakespeare, get a Shimano, get a Luz, get a name brand decent bait casting reel to learn on. Because if you get a cheap $19, $30 Ozark Trail from Walmart, I hate that freaking reel. If you get a bad wish.com, luckily enough I lucked out and got a good one, but if you get a bad reel online, a cheap reel, chances are it's going to aid to your downfall. It's going to aid to that I can't get the hang of it and I'm not going to be able to, so I'm not going to try it anymore. I'm not pushing bait casters. I still use my spin casters, especially for my catfishing. But bait casting is, I'm trying to debunk the thing of people say bait casters, they can't get the hang of it. It's too much hassle. Why would I want to learn something that I already know something else? This is because you want to expand. You want to try different things in your fishing career. So my thing is, get a name brand. I wish I had the Abu Garcia Black Max when I was learning. It would have went so much easier. I didn't. I had the wish.com reel. That is an amazing reel. I lucked out and got a good reel. That being said, I'm going to take you through kind of how the bait casters are, how they're set up, and how they look, what they all mean, just kind of like an overall view of the bait caster. So you guys hang in there. Woo! Okay, so what we're doing now is I'm going to give you my 3 bait casters lined up. I'm going to give you an overview, switch to holding the camera instead of the tripod, but I'm going to give you an overview, kind of take you through my reels and show you what they all mean. We're just going to start with the Shakespeare Alpha. So you see on the side, as I was saying, you have the magnetic brakes, and this one specifically says max and minimum 10 all the way down to 0. I use this for my Texas rig crawl, which is I'm going to say a medium weighted bait. All of these are kind of medium. This one's a little bit heavier, but medium weighted baits. This is your magnetic brake on this one. It has the dial, as you can see, mine is at 8. Like I said, anywhere between 8, 7, 7.5, 8. I don't think I've ever gone all the way up to max. But then you have the top view of it here. You have your, obviously your release button, your spool here. Your line comes through up here. And then on the business side of things, you have your, oh my gosh, you have your handle, you have your star drag, you have your brake dial, and that's pretty much it. All 3 of these are low profile. I think my wish.com reel here is the biggest gears that I have. We're going to get to that in a second, but since I'm pointing the camera at it, this is my Abu Garcia. This is the one you guys just saw. As you see, this one just says max and pokey dot. So if you go off of this reel, which I know is not the same, but if you go off of this reel and this reel, you see that this would be in about the 6.5, 7 range. And just like every other bait caster, the line comes through. You have your spool, your release button, your brake knob, your star drag, and your handle. These 2 are right-handed retrieves. Let's talk about that. I was so nervous because of this wish.com reel I have right here. I specifically bought that one because it was a left-handed retrieve, and I know you can get the Abu Garcia and the Luz and all of these other name brand reels. I know you can get them in left-handed retrieve. It's usually special order, and then some of them might be a little bit more expensive. So what I did was I had a learning curve, and I started retrieving right hand. My spin casters, my catfish rod, my spin casting bass rod, and this one here, my wish.com bait caster, are all left-handed retrieve. Those 2 are the only ones that are right-handed retrieve. I thought it was going to be a lot more uncomfortable changing up, but honestly, there's not really much of a difference. I mean, yeah, I got to switch the pole back and forth between hands, but I mean, because I cast with my right hand, but then I got to hold the rod with my left hand to retrieve with my right hand, so I got to switch it back and forth. But honestly, the right-handed retrieve, it wasn't that big a deal. I don't know if you guys are running into the same situation, but if you are, don't worry about it. You guys will be fine. Moving on to my wish.com reel right here, I cannot say anything but great things. I have thrown huge baits, and I have thrown dinky, tiny little baits off of this bait caster, and they have done amazing. The only thing is, because it's wish.com and it's made overseas, your brake dial, instead of backwards to loosen it and forward to tighten that, it's reversed. So it'd be, and I don't know if that's left-handed retrieves or not, because it's the only one I use, but that's how it works right here. You dial it back and it stays in place. You dial it forward and it drops. Same thing with the drag. The drag is also in reverse, and like I said, I don't know if that's left-handed retrieve or if that's because it was made overseas. But over here you can see the wear and tear on this reel. You have the max here. This one's dialed back down to about the 6. And then you have your ball bearings, your 12-to-1 and stuff that we're about to get to. But you can see this. Anyways, you can see that this reel has been through the ringer, whereas these reels that I got in this year still look pretty and new. But I think there's one more thing that I want to go over. That is the bait casting. I got a bug on my leg. That is a bait casting rod. Oh, I guess it'd be two things. That'd be the bait casting rod and the ball bearings and stuff like that, and the gear ratio. That's what I wanted to talk about, was the gear ratio. You see on this has 5 ball bearings. Where's it at? Right there. 641. This gear ratio is 621, and then this gear ratio is 811. So if you have, let me try to set up the tripod again. Sorry for the background noise, it's kind of obnoxious. But if you have this part of the handle, facing forward, and you were to rotate that one full rotation, that means that your spool, as you can see, I'm going to do it again, you have this back one right here, you spin it one full rotation, that means that spool and your line has spun around 6 full times in one reel, which makes my wish.com with the 8-to-1 and my Abu Garcia, my faster retrieving reels, the 6.2 is not bad, but I mean, it's slower retrieve. That's why I use it with my crawl, so I can drop it and I can bounce that. Other than that, the only other thing I would say is I use regular spin casting rods. I know they make specific bait caster rods, but I use regular spin casting. This is the Zebco Rhino. This is the Ugly Stick, and this is the A-Tac by Zebco. I use regular spin casting rods. It doesn't really matter on my account. You could use almost any rod with a bait caster on my experience, and it would work all the same. So that being said, I hope that you guys will be able to go out and actually experience the joy of bait casters. They are amazing reels. I love them. I love the learning curve. I loved learning how to use them and continuously going over different techniques and different ways to do it. I hope that you guys, if you guys are on the fence about getting a bait caster learning, I hope you guys get out there and try it. I hope this video kind of helps with that. And if you guys are negative, you guys are against bait casters, they suck, they're for the new kids, they're new age, blah blah blah, trust me, they're not that bad. I mean, you'll get your few that are crap, like the Ozark Trail that I got from Walmart for $30. What do you expect? But you get your reels that are crap, then that's going to deter you a little bit more, whereas these reels right here have done me good. I got to learn with them, I got to build with them, so I hope that you guys will be able to get out there and experience a baitcaster of your very own. I hope that you guys are kind of taking this video, taking the information, actually applying it, and if you're not and you're still watching this video, hey, I guess you guys just want to see me. But with that being said, I hope you guys are staying happy, staying healthy, and staying safe. And of course, I hope you guys never forget, that's a diesel. I hope you guys never forget to keep cranking.